Ever get the feeling like the world's speaking a language you don't get?
Oh, totally.
Like, how does anything actually work behind the scenes? Well, today's deep dive, we're cracking the code, specifically EDI sequences.
Yeah, EDI sequences.
It's how entire industries talk to each other, and you'd be surprised how much it sneaks into your everyday life.
It's true. Most people, they don't even realize how much they rely on EDI. That's electronic data interchange, by the way, without even knowing it.
Right. So to kick us off, can you give us that? Explain it like I'm five version of what EDI is, like at its core, and why it matters so much these days?
Okay. Imagine a world,
Yeah.
no email.
Oh no.
You're stuck sending letters for every little thing. EDI is like email, but for businesses. Instead of paper purchase orders, invoices, all that, it's instant between computers in a way everyone's agreed on.
So speed and efficiency, basically. But our listeners specifically wanted these EDI sequences broken down. What makes them different than just sending like one document at a time?
That's the good stuff. Okay, think ordering something online, you hit buy. That's a message, right? Then you get a confirmation, another one. Finally, shipping info. That whole back and forth, that's a sequence, a chain, but with its own logic to it.
So it's like a whole conversation, not just a single text.
Exactly. And just like conversations go smoother when everyone's on the same page, EDI sequences, they rely on a shared language, standardized codes.
Okay, so not just random numbers flying around.
Right. Before we get lost in the weeds. These codes, think of them like agreed upon phrases, make sure everyone knows exactly what's being said, no confusion.
Got it, got it. So I'm starting to see the picture here. Where do these sequences actually do stuff? Like, what's the real world impact?
Let's take retail. Everyone shops, right? Imagine a store trying to keep track of its inventory. Every shirt someone buys, someone's got to update something, call the supplier. That'd be madness.
Yeah, and lots of disappointed shoppers looking for their size.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But these sequences, the moment that shirt's scanned, boom, chain reaction. The store system, it sends an EDI 850, that's the code for a purchase order, to the supplier, basically saying, yo, need more of these.
So just knowing that one code, 850, you can see this whole chain of efficiency across like the whole industry.
100%. And it keeps going. The supplier, they get that 850, automatically shoot back an EDI 855, an acknowledgement. Got it. Then shirts are shipped, EDI 856, shipping notice with tracking and all that.
So the customer, they just see shirts magically back on the rack, but behind it, it's this whole EDI dance going on.
Precisely. And what's wild is that same basic flow order confirms ship. It runs tons of stuff in retail and beyond. Make sure we get what we need when we need it.
Speaking of behind the scenes, what about manufacturing? I know EDI is huge for keeping factories running, but in my head, it's like robots talking to each other.
Well, not quite robots
Yeah.
yet. Ever heard of just-in-time manufacturing?
Maybe. I'm going to need a refresher.
So it's all about efficiency. Imagine, car factory. They need thousands of parts for one car. Storing all that would be, like, insanely expensive.
Yeah, talk about needing a warehouse. So how do they make sure they have the parts without, like, building a second factory just to hold them?
That's where just-in-time and EDI, they, like, team up. Instead of stockpiling, the factory uses EDI to tell suppliers exactly what they need right when they need it.
So it's like, deliver 2 headlights and a steering wheel to loading dock 3 on Tuesday at 10:00 a.m. sharp.
Yeah, exactly. That level of precision, that's what EDI makes possible. In this case, they'd use EDI 830. That's the planning schedule. Think of it like giving suppliers a heads up so they know what's up and can plan their own stuff perfectly.
Talk about a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
But even with all that planning, things can still go sideways, right? Like, what happens if a truck gets delayed or something?
Right, and that's where EDI 862 comes in the shipping schedule. It's like real-time updates on where those headlights and that steering wheel are.
Like a GPS tracker, but for car parts.
Exactly. And it's not just about keeping factories running. This visibility, it impacts everything.
Yeah, less waste, fewer delays. That'd be huge for any industry. Okay, but enough about factories. Let's talk about something a bit more, relatable, like healthcare.
Oh yeah, healthcare. This is where EDI gets personal. We're talking faster insurance approvals, quicker claims, stuff that really matters to people.
Now, those are benefits everyone can get behind, but I gotta admit, I still picture mountains of paperwork when I think about healthcare. How does EDI even begin to tackle all that?
Remember those codes we talked about? Let's say you go to the doctor. Before you even step foot in the waiting room, they might send your insurance an EDI 270, an eligibility inquiry.
So it's like a digital, are we good here, before they even see me?
Exactly. And if it's all good, the insurance company sends back an EDI 271 confirming your coverage. Then, after your visit, Boom, EDI 837, that's your claim, filed electronically.
So instead of waiting for weeks, everything's faster, potentially. No more lost claims or trying to read someone's bad handwriting.
Exactly. And that faster turnaround, it can make all the difference, especially if it's something urgent.
It's wild how these like seemingly boring codes can have such a big impact on our lives.
It really shows you how connected everything is through these digital conversations. And we've only scratched the surface of how many industries use EDI.
True, true. We don't want to overload anyone. But there are a couple more stops on our little EDI world tour that I think are worth checking out. What about transportation and logistics? That's got to be another world where efficiency is key.
Oh, absolutely. Think tracking a package across the globe or coordinating like tons of goods being delivered on crazy tight timelines. That's EDI in action.
It's like a perfectly timed dance, but with trucks and cargo ships. So how do EDI sequences come into play in that world?
Let's say you've got a truckload of something you need to ship. You'd use EDI 204, the motor carrier load tender. It's basically a help wanted ad for shipping companies.
So like a matchmaking service for shippers and carriers.
Yeah, pretty much. And if a carrier is interested, they'll respond with EDI 990, like saying, yep, we can handle that. Once everyone's on board, you've got EDI 214, the transportation carrier shipment status message.
So it's like tracking your pizza delivery, but for like a whole truckload of stuff.
Exactly. Gives everyone, the shipper, the carrier, even the customer sometimes, updates on where everything is, when it'll arrive, if there are any holdups, all that.
No more endlessly refreshing those tracking websites then.
Nope. Everything's out in the open. And once the goods are delivered, EDI 210 comes in the motor carrier freight details and invoice.
So everything's wrapped up digitally. No more lost invoices or payment delays. Speaking of money, though, what about EDI in finance? I feel like that's an area where even a few seconds of delay could be a huge deal.
Absolutely. In finance, time is money. Literally. We're talking billions of dollars changing hands every minute, and EDI makes sure those transactions happen accurately, securely, and fast.
So it's like the backbone of the entire financial system, but like invisible.
You got it. Think about sending money electronically. Behind the scenes, it's EDI 820 making it happen. That's the payment order remittance advice.
So instead of physically moving money around, it all happens instantly online.
Precisely. And to make things even smoother, there's EDI 823, which powers those lockbox services you might have heard of.
Okay, Lockbox sounds a little old school, like something out of a pirate movie. What is that exactly?
It might sound old school, but it's super efficient. Basically, businesses can have PO boxes for their customers to send payments to. EDI 823 comes into play by letting banks process those payments online without having to touch every single check.
So bridging the gap between paper checks and instant digital payments.
Exactly. Faster, fewer errors, and businesses can focus on, well, doing business.
It's really amazing how EDI is involved in so many things we don't even think about. But before we get too comfortable thinking we've cracked the EDI code.
There's one more code we got to talk about, EDI 828, debit authorization.
Now that one sounds particularly relevant to my online shopping habits.
It just might be. Think of it like this. EDI 828 lets businesses authorize those recurring payments. You know, those subscription services or bills you have.
So it's like setting up auto pay for your Netflix account, but for all kinds of businesses and services.
Exactly. Keeps those regular payments flowing, make sure they're made on time, and saves everyone a ton of hassle.
This has been a seriously eye-opening look into the world of EDI sequences. From retail shelves to car factories to like our own healthcare and even those online subscriptions. But before we wrap up, I'm kind of curious about something. We've seen how different industries, they have their own EDI lingo, right? Like their own codes, their own sequences. What happens when those industries need to like actually talk to each other?
Oh, that's a really good question. Gets to one of the most important things about EDI interoperability.
Interoperability. You try saying that 5 times fast. But no, seriously, what does that even mean when we're talking EDI?
Basically, even though different industries use different codes, right? Different sequences, the systems themselves, they're built to understand each other, no matter what.
So like a universal translator, but for business?
Exactly. Imagine like a retailer ordering from a manufacturer. They might use different EDI messages back and forth, but because their systems have this interoperability, it just works. Smooth transaction.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does it actually work? Is there like some big EDI mainframe somewhere directing traffic?
That's what a lot of people think, but nope. No giant EDI brain controlling everything. Instead, businesses use all sorts of ways to connect. Direct connections sometimes, or VANs, those are value-added networks, and more, it's all cloud-based.
So less about a physical location, more about making sure those lines of communication are open.
Exactly. It's all about creating a way for businesses to talk to each other securely and reliably, no matter what industry they're in, no matter how big or small they are.
This deep dive has been honestly mind-blowing. We've gone from those retail shelves we see every day to those car factories to doctors' offices, even our own online subscriptions. But before we go, gotta ask, what's the big takeaway for our listeners? Why should they care about any of this?
For me, it's like getting a superpower in the business world, understanding EDI sequences.
Okay, EDI superpower, I'm listening.
Think about it. When you understand these digital conversations happening all around us, you start to see how everything works. Industries, how information moves, even just like how the world functions behind the scenes.
So it's not even just about the tech itself, it's about what understanding it lets you do.
Exactly. You want to get ahead in your career, make smarter choices as a consumer, or just, figure out how the world ticks. EDI literacy, man, it's a secret weapon.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So listeners, next time your online order shows up crazy fast or you get through some complicated process without a hitch, there's a good chance EDI is quietly doing its thing in the background. The invisible language keeping our world running smoothly. And hey, maybe you'll even impress someone with your newfound EDI knowledge at your next dinner party.
You never know. It's definitely a fascinating subject to break out.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember there's always more to uncover on the deep dive.